Hello, story lovers, and welcome to another episode of Around the World in 40 Tales. My name is Doreen Vanderstoop, and I am here with fellow Storytelling Alberta member Jennifer Kennedy. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, good to see you.
Great to have you here today. So, Jennifer will be telling a story from medieval England called The Story of Sir Orfeo. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge, in the spirit of gratitude and reconciliation, that Storytelling Alberta operates on the traditional territories of the Indigenous signatories to Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. This land includes the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Jennifer Kennedy has been a member of Storytelling Alberta Strathcona chapter since 1998. She has volunteered on the executive in one capacity or another for most of that time. Jennifer also writes, mostly speculative fiction and poetry, under the byline JYT Kennedy. She has drawn on many sources as a storyteller, but has always had a particular interest in early literature with its blend of history, myth, and folklore. Jennifer, great to have you. Please take it away.
Thank you. The Story of Sir Orfeo was written down in verse in England and probably takes place in England, though some bits of it seem to have come there by way of ancient Greece. Orfeo was a good and courteous king, well loved by his people and especially by his wife, Herodes. He was also a musician. He loved music and especially the harp. Anyone with skill in harping was always welcome at his court, and he practiced too. He spent so much time and passion on his instrument that he could play better than anyone. People were amazed to hear him. One May morning, his wife, Herodes, and two of her ladies went out to see the flowers and hear the birds sing. They stopped by the side of an orchard, and Herodes lay down to rest under a fruit tree. She fell asleep, and the ladies didn't want to disturb her and let her sleep on until the sun was high in the sky. And when the noon had passed, suddenly she woke, screaming and crying, scratching her face until it bled and tearing at her clothes. The ladies were frightened and rushed to get help. Soon Orfeo was by Herodes' side, asking her what was wrong, what could he do to help her. There is nothing you can do, she said. You and I must be parted. That can't be so, said Orfeo. Why, if you must go, then I will go with you. No, she said, you don't understand. When I was sleeping, a king came to me with a great host all dressed in white on white horses. And he had a crown that wasn't silver or gold, but some sort of glowing gemstone. And I had to go with him and ride with him to a distant, strange country and see his castle there and everything around, which was wonderful, but strange too. And he told me that tomorrow I must come with him again, and this time stay forever. And that if I do not wait for him under that same fruit tree, then I will be found wherever I am and torn to pieces and brought there anyway. Orfeo and Herodes consulted with everyone they could, but no good solution was found. In the end, Herodes went and lay down under that same fruit tree again the next day, but Orfeo came with her and many of his soldiers, and they formed a circle all around her, prepared to fight to the death to defend her. And yet, somehow when the sun went high in the sky, she disappeared right out from among them, and no one could tell where she was gone. Then Orfeo grieved so that he could not bear to stay and rule his kingdom any longer. And so he put in charge of his steward, and he went out alone into the wilderness. He wore nothing but a rough pilgrim's shirt and brought nothing but his harp. Barefoot he went out of the town, and in the wilderness, the king who had always lived in luxury slept on the rough ground and filled his belly as well as he could with roots and berries and bark. And so he lived 10 years and more until he was wasted away and thin, and his beard and hair were grown long. He kept his harp safe in bad weather in a hollow tree. And when the sun was shining, sometimes he would take it out and play. Then all the beasts and the birds of the forest would gather round to listen. Sometimes when the sun was going high up into the sky, he would see white riders among the trees. Sometimes they seemed to be hunting, but he never saw them take any game. And sometimes they seemed to be riding to battle, but he never saw who they went to fight. Sometimes he heard music and saw lords and ladies dancing in the distance, but always they vanished without him seeing where they went. Then at last, one day after 10 years had passed in the wilderness, a group of some 60 ladies all on white horses came riding by, and each of them had a hawk on her wrist. They rode down to the side of the river, and one by one they loosed the hawks, and each one brought back a bird to its mistress. And Orfeo remembered how he had enjoyed sport of that kind before, and he drew closer to watch. Then one of the ladies turned, and he saw that it was none other than his wife, Herodes. They looked at each other, and neither of them dared to speak. But Herodes, seeing how wasted and thin and ragged her husband was, wept, and tears ran down her face. Then the other ladies quickly took her away and rode back to where they had come. For a moment, Orfeo almost wanted to fall down dead to think that he had seen his wife and not dared to speak to her. But then he thought to himself, come what may, I'll try to follow them. So he took his harp on his back and he ran after. And he followed those ladies through the forest until they went into a rock, and he went into it too, and into a strange country. In that place, there was a great palace with walls around it, all of gold and precious stones which glowed so that there was no need for sunlight. The ladies went in at the gate, but the gatekeeper stopped Orfeo and asked him his business. I'm a minstrel, he said. I have come to play for your lord. The gatekeeper let him in. He passed through a courtyard where he saw people, some of them standing with their heads cut off, others looking as though they had been drowned or burned or had choked to death or died in childbed, and some just laying as though they were asleep. And under a fruit tree, he saw Herodes laying there, sleeping. But he went past on into the hall, where he saw the king and queen of that place sitting in such magnificence he could hardly look at them. And he presented himself. The king said, I never sent for you. Why, I don't believe a mortal man has ever dared to come here before without having been sent for. I'm a minstrel, Orfeo said, and it is not our custom to wait to be sent for. We go wherever we think we can find an audience for our music. And then he began to play. And the king said nothing more. He was too deeply moved by the music, delighting and listening, and so did his queen, and all the rest of the household gathered round to hear. When Orfeo had finished, the king said, you have played well. Tell me what you want as a reward, and I will give it to you. I want the lady that is lying outside under the fruit tree, said Orfeo. It would be a foul thing to give a beautiful lady like that to a rough man like you, said the king. It would be a fouler thing to break your word when you promised me my reward, said Orfeo. Very well, said the king. Take her by the hand and go. So Orfeo didn't wait at all. He took his chance and went out and took Herodes by the hand. Then she woke up and they went together out of that place, through the wilderness, all the way back to their own city. Orfeo left Herodes in a poor hut by the edge of town and went on up to the steward's hall. The steward received him gladly, saying all harpers were welcome there for the sake of King Orfeo. And so he sat at the banquet and listened to all the other musicians who were there. When the rest were done, he played and astonished everyone with his skill. But the steward was more astonished yet to see the harp that he was playing, for he recognized it. He said to him, "Where did you get that harp?" "Some 10 years past," Orpheus said. "I found a man all torn to bits by wild animals out in the wilderness, and this harp beside him." The steward gave a cry of horror. "Then Orfeo is dead," he said, and he collapsed to the ground. And Orfeo saw that he was truly sorry to hear of the king's death. And he said, "If I were Sir Orfeo, and I had lived in the wilderness 10 years and more, and then got my wife back and returned here and found you so true and faithful, I would reward you and make you king after I am gone." And then everyone understood that this was the king himself. And he was bathed and shaved and dressed in fine clothes, and Herodotus was brought up to join him. And they ruled well and happily for many years, and so did the steward afterward.
What a beautiful, moving story. I love how music can bring redemption. That's wonderful. And so well told, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your gift. If anybody wants to reach out to Jennifer or any of us at Storytelling Alberta, they can email us at info@storytellingalberta.com. And make sure to check out our website, www.storytellingalberta.com, to find links to all of our 40th anniversary videos, of which there are many. Thank you to Jennifer. Thank you so much for your story today, Jennifer. And thank you to all our listeners for joining us around the world.